How America Became a Superpower, Part 1 of 10. The Gamble That Should Have Failed. No one in 1776 would have bet on America. Not seriously. A scattered collection of colonies, poorly armed, deeply divided, lacking a real army, navy, or unified economy, declared independence from the most powerful empire on Earth, the British Empire. It wasn't just unlikely, it was absurd. And yet, from that impossible beginning, a nation would rise that would one day dominate global politics, economics, culture, and military power, the United States. This is the story of how that happened. The fragile beginning. In the late 18th century, the American colonies were not a nation, they were 13 separate worlds. Massachusetts was fiercely independent, Virginia was aristocratic and plantation-driven, Pennsylvania thrived on commerce and diversity. They argued constantly. When tensions with Britain escalated, taxation without representation, the Stamp Act, the Boston Tea Party, many colonists didn't want independence at all. They wanted compromise. Even in 1776, nearly one-third of colonists remained loyal to Britain. And yet, a small group of visionaries pushed forward. Men like Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and Benjamin Franklin believed something radical, not just independence, but a new kind of nation. An idea more powerful than an army. The Declaration of Independence wasn't just a breakup letter, it was a revolutionary blueprint. For the first time in history, a nation was founded not on monarchy, religion, or conquest, but on ideas, equality, individual rights, government by the people. This ideological foundation would later become America's greatest weapon, not muskets or cannons, because ideas spread faster than armies. War against the impossible. When war broke out, reality hit hard. The Continental Army, led by George Washington, faced overwhelming odds. British troops were better trained, better supplied, backed by the most powerful navy in the world. Washington's army, by contrast, lacked uniforms, had little ammunition, often went unpaid. At Valley Forge in the winter of 1777-78, soldiers starved, froze, and deserted. The revolution nearly collapsed. But something strange happened. They didn't quit. The turning point nobody expected. The victory at Saratoga in 1777 changed everything. It convinced France that the American cause might actually succeed. And France didn't just offer moral support. They sent money, weapons, troops, naval power. This transformed the war. What had been a rebellion became an international conflict. And suddenly, Britain wasn't just fighting colonists, it was fighting a global war. Winning without dominance. America didn't win by overpowering Britain, it won by surviving. Washington avoided decisive defeat. He stretched British resources. He turned time into a weapon. Finally, in 1781, at the Battle of Yorktown, British General Cornwallis surrendered. It was over. Against all logic, the colonies had won. But victory was only the beginning. Winning independence didn't make America powerful. In fact, it nearly destroyed the country. After the war, the new nation was deeply in debt, politically unstable, economically fractured. The first government, the Articles of Confederation, was so weak it couldn't even collect taxes. Some states acted like independent countries. Rebellion broke out. The experiment was failing. The second gamble. In 1787, leaders gathered in Philadelphia. What they did there would shape the future of the world. Instead of fixing the broken system, they scrapped it entirely. They wrote the United States Constitution. It created a strong federal government, checks and balances, a system designed to survive conflict. It was bold, risky, unproven, and it worked. The hidden advantage. While Europe was locked in centuries of war, America had something rare: distance. The Atlantic Ocean acted as a natural shield. No invading armies, no constant destruction. This allowed the US to do something revolutionary: grow, quietly, relentlessly. The seeds of a future giant. By the early 1800s, the United States was still weak by global standards, but it had advantages no one fully understood yet. Vast land, natural resources, a rapidly growing population, a political system built for expansion, and one more thing: ambition. A deal that changed everything. In 1803, President Thomas Jefferson made a decision that doubled the size of the country overnight. He purchased a massive territory from France. It was called the Louisiana Purchase. For just $15 million, the US gained control of land stretching from the Mississippi River to the Rocky Mountains. At the time, it seemed uncertain, even reckless, but in hindsight, it was one of the most important decisions in history, because land meant power, and America now had more of it than anyone realized. How America Became a Superpower, Part 2. The United States was growing.
but it was also breaking. By the early 1800s, the young nation faced a contradiction so deep, so explosive, that it would eventually erupt into the deadliest war in American history. A country founded on liberty was still built on slavery. Two Americas, one nation. As the United States expanded westward after the Louisiana Purchase, a critical question followed every new territory. Would it allow slavery or not? This question split the nation into two very different worlds. The North, rapidly industrializing, focused on manufacturing and commerce, increasingly opposed to slavery. The South, agricultural economy based on cotton, dependent on enslaved labor, deeply invested in maintaining the system. These weren't just economic differences, they were moral, cultural, and political divides, and they were widening. The illusion of compromise. For decades, American leaders tried to hold the country together through compromise. Deals like the Missouri Compromise attempted to balance free and slave states. But these solutions were temporary. Like cracks in a dam, the pressure kept building. Every new territory reignited the same question. Every political debate became more heated, and every compromise became harder to reach. The rise of moral conflict. By the 1850s, slavery was no longer just a political issue. It had become a moral battlefield. Abolitionists, people who demanded the end of slavery, grew louder and more influential. Figures like Frederick Douglass spoke with undeniable force, exposing the brutal realities of slavery. Meanwhile, Southern leaders doubled down, arguing that their entire way of life depended on it. The nation wasn't just divided, it was emotionally charged, explosive. A spark that ignited the fire. In 1860, everything changed. Abraham Lincoln was elected president. He wasn't an abolitionist extremist, but he opposed the expansion of slavery. For Southern states, that was enough. They saw his election as a direct threat. One by one, states began to leave the Union. They formed a new nation, the Confederate States of America. The United States was no longer united. The Civil War begins. In 1861, war broke out. The American Civil War had begun. It wasn't just a war over territory, it was a war over the very meaning of America. Would it remain one nation or split into two? A war of unimaginable scale. At first, many believed the war would be short. They were wrong. It became one of the bloodiest conflicts in modern history. Over 600,000 soldiers died. Entire cities were destroyed. Families were torn apart. Brother fought brother. The nation descended into chaos. Turning point, a new purpose. Initially, the war was about preserving the Union, but in 1863, Abraham Lincoln made a decision that changed everything. He issued the Emancipation Proclamation. It declared that enslaved people in Confederate territory were free. This transformed the war, from a political conflict into a moral crusade. Now the Union wasn't just fighting to stay together, it was fighting to end slavery. The battle that defined a nation. The turning point came at Gettysburg in 1863. For 3 days, Union and Confederate forces clashed in a brutal battle. When it ended, the Confederacy's advance into the North had been stopped. The tide of the war had shifted. The Union began to gain the upper hand. Victory, at a cost. In 1865, the war finally ended. The Union had won. The United States was preserved. Slavery was abolished. But the victory came at a devastating price. Cities in the South lay in ruins. The economy was shattered. Millions were left struggling to rebuild their lives. And just days after the war ended, Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. The nation had survived, but barely. Reconstruction, a broken promise. After the war, America faced a new challenge. How do you rebuild a nation that just tore itself apart? The Reconstruction era attempted to reintegrate Southern states, grant rights to formerly enslaved people, rebuild the economy. But it was messy, incomplete, and often unjust. Racial tensions remained. Inequality persisted. The wounds of the war never fully healed. The unexpected outcome. Despite the devastation, something remarkable happened. The Civil War didn't weaken the United States in the long run. It strengthened it. Why? Because it resolved the nation's greatest internal contradiction. It ended slavery. It preserved union. And it created a stronger federal government. For the first time, the United States truly functioned as one nation. The foundation of power. By the late 1800s, the U.S. was no longer fragile. It had survived revolution, political collapse, civil war. Few nations in history had endured so much and remained intact. This resilience became a defining trait.
and it set the stage for something bigger, much bigger.
How America Became a Superpower, Part 3. The Industrial Explosion, How America Became an Economic Giant. The war was over. The smoke had cleared. But what rose from the ashes of the American Civil War wasn't just a reunited nation. It was an economic powerhouse waiting to happen. And within a few decades, the United States would transform faster than almost any society in human history. A nation ready to build. After the Civil War, America had something unique. Massive natural resources, a growing population fueled by immigration, a unified national market, and no major wars on its own soil. While Europe was recovering from conflicts and political upheaval, the US focused on one thing: building. The railroad that connected a continent. Nothing symbolized this transformation more than the railroad. In 1869, the first transcontinental railroad was completed. For the first time, the East and West coasts were physically connected. What once took months, now took days. This changed everything. Goods moved faster, people moved easier, markets expanded overnight. America wasn't just a country anymore. It was becoming a single, integrated economic machine. The rise of industry titans. Out of this explosive growth emerged powerful figures, men who would shape entire industries. Andrew Carnegie dominated steel. John D. Rockefeller controlled oil. J.P. Morgan reshaped finance. Cornelius Vanderbilt ruled railroads. These men were called captains of industry by some, and robber barons by others. Because while they created enormous wealth, they also built monopolies, crushed competitors, and controlled vast portions of the economy. The birth of big business. This era marked the rise of something new: big business. Companies became larger, more powerful, and more organized than ever before. Innovations in production, like assembly lines and mass manufacturing, allowed goods to be produced faster and cheaper. America began to dominate industries such as steel, oil, railroads, banking. By the late 1800s, the United States was producing more steel than Britain. That was unthinkable just decades earlier. Cities rise, and so do problems. As industries grew, so did cities. Millions of immigrants arrived from Europe seeking opportunity. They poured into places like New York, Chicago, Boston. Cities expanded rapidly, but not always safely. Workers faced long hours, dangerous conditions, low wages. Children worked in factories. Families lived in overcrowded tenements. The American dream existed, but it came at a cost. Innovation that changed the world. Despite the hardships, this period unleashed incredible innovation. Inventors and entrepreneurs reshaped daily life. Thomas Edison brought electric light. Alexander Graham Bell revolutionized communication. Nikola Tesla advanced electrical systems. Electricity, telephones, and new technologies connected people in ways never seen before. America wasn't just growing, it was inventing the future. The government steps in. As corporations grew more powerful, the government began to respond. Public pressure mounted against monopolies and unfair practices. This led to the rise of regulation. Laws like the Sherman Antitrust Act aimed to break up powerful trusts and restore competition. For the first time, the federal government started playing a major role in shaping the economy. From isolation to influence. By the end of the 19th century, the United States had transformed from a rural nation into an industrial giant. Its economy was booming, its industries were unmatched, its population was growing rapidly. But there was one thing it still lacked: global influence. That was about to change. A new kind of power. Economic strength leads to something inevitable: ambition beyond borders. As American industries expanded, they needed new markets, new resources, new opportunities. The US began to look outward, toward the Caribbean, toward the Pacific, toward the world. The first steps onto the global stage. In 1998, the United States went to war with Spain. The Spanish-American War was short, but transformative. When it ended, the US gained territories like Puerto Rico, Guam, the Philippines.
For the first time, America had overseas possessions. It was no longer just a continental power. It was becoming an empire. The hidden transformation. What made this era so important wasn't just growth. It was capability. By 1900, the United States had the world's largest industrial economy, massive infrastructure, a culture of innovation, increasing global reach. These were the building blocks of a superpower, even if the world didn't fully realize it yet.
How America became a superpower. Part 4. 10. World War and global power. America steps onto the world stage. At the dawn of the 20th century, the United States was rich. It was industrialized. It was expanding. But it still wasn't a true global power. That would require something far more dangerous than economic growth. It would require war. A world on the brink. By 1914, Europe was a powder keg. Rival empires, tangled alliances, and rising nationalism pushed the continent toward disaster. Then came the spark, the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Within weeks, Europe exploded into the World War I. Major powers were drawn in: United Kingdom, France, Germany, Russia. It became a brutal, industrial-scale war unlike anything the world had seen. America stays out at first. The United States, under President Woodrow Wilson, initially chose neutrality. Americans didn't want another war, especially one across the ocean. But neutrality didn't mean isolation. The US traded heavily with allied powers like Britain and France. Economically, it was already involved. And slowly, the pressure to join grew. The moment that changed everything. In 1917, two events pushed America over the edge. Germany's unrestricted submarine warfare, attacking ships, including those with American passengers. The Zimmermann telegram, a secret German message proposing an alliance with Mexico against the US. The threat was clear. America could no longer stay out. That same year, the United States entered World War I. The power of fresh force. When American troops arrived in Europe, they brought something critical: fresh strength. After years of brutal fighting, European armies were exhausted. But the US had millions of new soldiers, massive industrial output, renewed energy. This shifted the balance. By 1918, the war ended. Germany surrendered. A new global role. For the first time, the United States had played a decisive role in a major global conflict. It had proven that its power extended beyond its borders. President Woodrow Wilson even proposed a new vision for world peace: the League of Nations. It was meant to prevent future wars. But here's the twist: the US never joined it. The retreat into isolation. After World War I, America stepped back. Despite its growing power, it chose isolation over global leadership. It avoided alliances, focused inward, built its economy. For a moment, it seemed like the US might remain a powerful but distant nation. The Roaring '20s. Boom before collapse. The 1920s were a time of explosive growth. Industries boomed, stock markets soared, consumer culture expanded. Cars, radios, and movies transformed daily life. The American economy looked unstoppable. Until it wasn't. The crash that shook the world. In 1929, the stock market collapsed. The Great Depression began. It wasn't just an American crisis. It became a global disaster. Banks failed, businesses collapsed. Millions lost their jobs. The same economic power that had lifted America now dragged the world into crisis. A nation tested again. The Great Depression forced the US to rethink everything. Government intervention increased. Programs were created to stabilize the economy. The country slowly began to recover. But while America struggled internally, a new threat was rising abroad: the gathering storm. In Europe and Asia, aggressive regimes were gaining power. Adolf Hitler in Germany, Benito Mussolini in Italy, militarists in Japan. They expanded aggressively, ignored international rules, prepared for war. And once again, the world stood on the edge of catastrophe.
reluctance before reality. The United States didn't want another war. The memories of World War I were still fresh. Isolationist sentiment remained strong. But history was repeating itself. And once again, America would be forced to decide: stay out or step in.
How America Became a Superpower. Part 5, 10. World War II, the birth of a superpower. December 7, 1941. A quiet Sunday morning in Hawaii. Within hours, everything changed. Because in a single, devastating strike, the United States was pulled into the deadliest war in human history. And by the time it ended, America would no longer be just a powerful nation. It would be the superpower. The attack that awakened a giant. The attack on Pearl Harbor by Japan shocked the nation. Battleships were destroyed. Thousands of Americans were killed. The illusion of safety, protected by oceans, was shattered. The next day, President Franklin D. Roosevelt declared war. The United States had officially entered World War II. From reluctance to total war. Before Pearl Harbor, many Americans wanted to stay out of the conflict. After it, there was no debate. The entire nation mobilized. Factories stopped making consumer goods and started producing weapons. Car companies built tanks. Typewriter companies made rifles. This transformation was staggering. The arsenal of democracy. The U.S. became what Franklin D. Roosevelt called the arsenal of democracy. American industry produced at an unimaginable scale. Thousands of aircraft, ships, tanks, and weapons. Supplies for allied nations. No country could match this output. Economic power turned into military power. And it changed the course of the war. Fighting on two fronts. Unlike World War I, this war spanned the globe. The U.S. fought on two major fronts. 1. Europe, against Adolf Hitler and Nazi Germany. 2. Pacific, against Japan. This required coordination, resources, and strategy on a massive scale. It also forced America to fully step into global leadership. The turning points. In Europe, key battles began to shift momentum. The most critical moment came in 1944. D-Day, the Allied invasion of Nazi-occupied France. Led by forces from the US, United Kingdom, and Canada, it marked the beginning of the end for Germany. In 1945, Berlin fell. Hitler was gone. Germany surrendered. The war in the Pacific. The Pacific War was brutal. Island by island, American forces pushed back Japanese control. Battles like Iwo Jima and Okinawa were intense and costly. Then came a decision that would change history forever. The atomic age begins. In August 1945, the United States dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima, Nagasaki. Developed through the secret Manhattan Project, these weapons unleashed unprecedented destruction. Within days, Japan surrendered. World War II was over. A world transformed. The war left much of the world devastated. Europe in ruins. Millions dead. Economies destroyed. But one country emerged stronger than ever. The United States. Why? Because unlike Europe and Asia, its mainland was untouched. Its industry was booming. Its military was unmatched. The two superpowers. After the war, global power shifted dramatically. Two nations stood above the rest. The United States, the Soviet Union. This marked the beginning of a new era. Not of direct war, but of tension, rivalry, and influence.
The Cold War. Rebuilding the world. Instead of retreating like after World War I, the US made a different choice. It stepped forward. Through initiatives like the Marshall Plan, America helped rebuild Europe, not just out of generosity, but strategy. A stable world meant stronger trade, less conflict, greater influence. This was a new kind of power, not just military, economic, political, cultural. The birth of a superpower. By the late 1940s, the transformation was complete. The United States now had the world's strongest economy, the most powerful military, nuclear weapons, global alliances. It wasn't just a participant in world affairs anymore. It was leading them. The hidden cost. But this power came with new risks. Nuclear war, global responsibility, constant tension with rival powers. Being a superpower wasn't just about strength. It was about managing a fragile world.
How America Became a Superpower, Part 6 of 10. The Cold War, Power, Fear, and the Race for Global Dominance. The war was over, but peace never truly came. Instead, the world entered a new kind of conflict, one without clear battlefields, without formal declarations, and without a single decisive victory. It was called the Cold War, and it would define America's role as a superpower for nearly half a century. Two visions of the world. After World War II, two dominant powers emerged: the United States, the Soviet Union. But this wasn't just a rivalry between nations. It was a clash of ideologies: capitalism and democracy, US; communism and centralized control, USSR. Each side believed its system was the future of humanity, and neither was willing to back down. The Iron Curtain falls. Europe became the first dividing line. The Soviet Union established control over Eastern Europe. The US and its allies controlled the West. This division became known as the Iron Curtain. One of the most powerful symbols of this split was the Berlin Wall, a physical barrier separating East and West Berlin. It wasn't just a wall, it was a line between two worlds. The nuclear shadow. For the first time in history, humanity had the power to destroy itself. Both the US and the Soviet Union developed nuclear weapons, and not just a few, thousands. This created a terrifying balance: mutually assured destruction, mad. If one side launched nuclear weapons, the other would respond, and both would be annihilated. This fear prevented direct war, but kept the world on edge. The Cold War goes global. The conflict didn't stay in Europe. It spread across the world through proxy wars, conflicts where the US and USSR supported opposing sides. Korea. In the early 1950s, the Korean War split the Korean peninsula. North Korea, communist; South Korea, US-backed. The war ended in a stalemate, but the division remains to this day. Vietnam. The Vietnam War became one of America's most controversial conflicts. The US tried to stop the spread of communism in Vietnam, but the war dragged on. Public support collapsed, and eventually the US withdrew. It was a rare moment where American power meant clear limits. The brink of nuclear war. The Cold War came closest to disaster in 1962, the Cuban Missile Crisis. The Soviet Union placed nuclear missiles in Cuba, just 90 miles from the US. For 13 days, the world held its breath. Nuclear war seemed inevitable, but through tense negotiations, both sides stepped back. It was a reminder: superpower status came with enormous responsibility. The space race, power beyond Earth. Competition extended beyond Earth. The space race became a symbol of technological superiority. The Soviets launched the first satellite, Sputnik. The US responded with massive investment in science and technology. In 1969, the US achieved a historic victory: Apollo 11 moon landing. Americans landed on the moon. It wasn't just a scientific achievement, it was a statement. The United States could do what no other nation could. Building alliances. Unlike earlier periods, the US didn't stand alone. It built a network of alliances around the world. The most important was NATO.
This created a collective defense system. An attack on one member was considered an attack on all. It strengthened US influence across Europe and beyond. The Cultural War. The Cold War wasn't just military, it was cultural. American music, movies, fashion, and lifestyle spread globally. Hollywood, rock music, and consumer culture became symbols of freedom and modern life. This soft power gave the US an advantage beyond weapons. The slow collapse of a rival. By the 1980s, cracks began to appear in the Soviet system. Economic struggles, political unrest, technological gaps. Meanwhile, the US economy remained strong and innovative. Finally, in 1991, the unthinkable happened. The dissolution of the Soviet Union. The Cold War ended. The last superpower standing. With the Soviet Union gone, only one global superpower remained, the United States. For the first time in modern history, a single nation stood unmatched in military strength, economic power, global influence. This period became known as the unipolar world.
How America Became a Superpower, Part 7 of 10. The Modern Superpower, Technology, Terror, and Global Influence. The Cold War was over. The United States stood alone at the top. No rival, no equal. For the first time in modern history, one nation held unmatched global power. But dominance doesn't mean stability, because the next threats America faced wouldn't come from superpowers. They would come from shadows. The unipolar moment. The 1990s were a time of American dominance. The economy surged, technology advanced rapidly, global influence expanded. This era is often called the unipolar moment, a time when the US had no serious geopolitical rival. American companies, culture, and political influence spread across the globe. The world was becoming interconnected, globalized, and America was at the center of it. The digital revolution. At the heart of this transformation was technology. The rise of the internet changed everything. Companies like Microsoft, Apple, and later Google reshaped how people communicate, work, access information. Innovation became America's new engine of power. Not just factories, but code. Not just steel, but data. A new kind of threat. Then came September 11, 2001. The September 11th attacks shocked the world. Coordinated terrorist strikes hit the World Trade Center in New York, the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. Thousands were killed. It wasn't a war between nations, it was an attack by a non-state group, and it changed everything. The War on Terror. In response, the U.S. launched the War on Terror. Its goal: prevent future attacks, destroy terrorist networks. This led to major military actions: the invasion of Afghanistan, 2001, the invasion of Iraq, 2003. America once again projected power globally. But these wars were different. They were long, complex, and controversial. Power meets limits. Despite overwhelming military strength, victory wasn't simple. Insurgencies grew, conflicts dragged on, costs increased, both human and economic. These wars revealed something important. Even a superpower has limits, especially when facing unconventional threats. The economic shock. In 2008, another crisis hit, the global financial crisis. It began in the US housing market, but quickly spread worldwide. Banks failed, markets crashed, millions lost jobs. America's economic leadership was shaken, but not broken, because once again, it adapted. The rise of soft power. While military and economic strength remained important, another form of power became even more influential: culture. American entertainment, technology, and lifestyle dominated globally. Hollywood movies, social media platforms, music, and fashion. Platforms built by companies like Facebook and YouTube connected billions. This wasn't forced influence, it was attraction, and it gave the US a powerful global presence. A changing world order. By the 2010s, the global landscape began to shift. New powers started rising. Countries like China grew economically and technologically. The world was no longer unipolar. It was becoming more competitive, more complex. Technology as the new battlefield. The nature of power continued to evolve. It was no longer just about armies, land, weapons. Now it included cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, information control. The US remained a leader, but the competition was catching up. Resilience in a new era.
Despite challenges, America maintained key advantages: innovation, global alliances, economic influence, cultural reach. It adapted to change again and again. That adaptability became one of its greatest strengths.
How America became a superpower. Part 8. The challenges of the 21st century, rival powers and global shifts. For decades, the United States stood at the top of the world, unchallenged, unmatched. But history never stands still, and in the 21st century, something began to change. Slowly at first, then unmistakably. The world was catching up. The rise of new powers. The most significant shift came from one country, China. In just a few decades, China transformed into an economic giant. Massive manufacturing power, rapid technological development, expanding global influence. It wasn't just growing, it was competing. And for the first time since the Cold War, the US faced a true peer competitor. From globalization to competition. For years, globalization had tied economies together. Trade expanded, supply chains stretched across continents. But this interconnected system also created vulnerabilities. Economic competition between the US and China intensified. Trade disputes, technology restrictions, strategic rivalries. The relationship became one of cooperation and competition, a delicate balance. The new Cold War? Some began calling it a new Cold War. Not identical to the past, but similar in key ways. Ideological differences, technological rivalry, global influence battles. But instead of nuclear standoffs alone, the competition now includes artificial intelligence, semiconductor technology, cyber warfare, space dominance. Power is no longer just physical, it's digital. Conflicts without clear battlefields. Unlike earlier eras, modern conflicts are harder to define. They don't always involve direct war. Instead, they play out through cyber attacks, economic sanctions, information warfare. The battlefield is everywhere and nowhere. The war on terror continues. Even as great power competition rises, older conflicts haven't disappeared. The legacy of the September 11th attacks still shapes US policy. Operations in regions like the Middle East continued for years. But public opinion shifted. Many Americans began questioning the cost of endless wars, the role of the US abroad, the balance between security and freedom, internal challenges. Superpower status isn't just about external strength. Internal stability matters just as much. In recent years, the US has faced growing domestic challenges: political polarization, economic inequality, social tensions. These issues don't destroy power, but they can weaken it, especially if left unresolved. The pandemic that shook the world. In 2020, a global crisis emerged: COVID-19. It disrupted everything: economies, healthcare systems, daily life. The United States, like every nation, was tested. But it also demonstrated its strengths: rapid vaccine development, scientific innovation, economic resilience. The pandemic revealed both vulnerabilities and capabilities. Alliances still matter. Despite new challenges, one advantage remains critical: alliances. Organizations like NATO continue to play a major role. Partnerships across Europe, Asia, and beyond strengthen US influence. In a more competitive world, cooperation becomes even more important. The economy of the future. The next phase of global power is being shaped right now. Key areas include artificial intelligence, renewable energy, advanced manufacturing, biotechnology. The US remains a leader, but the race is tighter than ever. Innovation will decide the future. A multipolar world emerges. The world is no longer dominated by a single superpower. It's becoming multipolar. The US remains a leading force. China rises. Other regions gain influence. This creates a more complex global system.
less predictable, more competitive. The real question: the United States is still powerful, still influential, still a superpower. But the question has changed. It's no longer, how did America become a superpower? It's now, can it stay one?
How America Became a Superpower. Part 9 by 10. The Future of Power. Can America maintain its dominance? For nearly a century, the United States has shaped the modern world. It has led wars, built alliances, driven innovation, defined culture. But history has a pattern. No power lasts forever. So the real question now isn't how America rose, it's whether it can stay at the top. The new race for dominance. The competition today looks very different from the past. It's no longer just about military size, land control. Now, the race is focused on artificial intelligence, advanced computing, space technology, cyber dominance. Countries like China are investing heavily in these areas. The next superpower won't just control territory, it will control technology. Innovation, America's greatest weapon. Throughout history, one advantage has consistently defined the U.S. innovation. From Thomas Edison to Silicon Valley startups, America has led waves of transformation. Today, companies like Apple, Google, Tesla are shaping the future of AI, energy, communication. If the U.S. continues to lead in innovation, it keeps its edge. If it falls behind, everything changes. The economic battlefield. Economic strength remains the backbone of power. The U.S. still holds major advantages: the world's largest economy, or near it, the global influence of the dollar, strong financial institutions. But competition is rising. Trade wars, supply chain shifts, and new economic alliances are reshaping the system. The question isn't just growth, it's sustainability. The power of alliances. Unlike many rising powers, the U.S. doesn't stand alone. It leads a network of alliances. NATO, partnerships across Asia and Europe. These relationships multiply American influence. In a complex world, allies are force multipliers. But alliances require trust, and trust must be maintained. Internal strength equals external power. No empire falls from the outside alone. History shows internal weakness is often the real cause. For the U.S., key internal challenges include political division, economic inequality, education and workforce readiness, infrastructure development. A strong society fuels a strong nation. Without it, global leadership weakens. Military power still matters. Even in a digital age, military strength remains critical. The U.S. still maintains the world's most advanced military, global deployment capabilities, cutting-edge defense technology. But warfare is evolving. Future conflicts may focus more on drones, cyber attacks, autonomous systems. Superiority must evolve with the battlefield. The information war. Power today is also about controlling narratives. Social media, news, and digital platforms shape public opinion worldwide. Misinformation, propaganda, and influence campaigns are now tools of global competition. The U.S. has influence here, but also faces challenges in managing it. The climate factor. A new factor is reshaping global power: climate change. It affects economies, migration, resources, stability. Leadership in clean energy and sustainability could define future dominance. It's not just an environmental issue, it's a strategic one. The wild card, the unexpected. History is full of surprises. Wars no one predicted, crises no one saw coming, innovations that changed everything. The next major shift could come from anywhere: a technological breakthrough, a global crisis, a geopolitical conflict. Superpowers aren't just defined by strength, but by how they respond to the unexpected. So, can America stay on top? The answer isn't simple, because it depends on choices. Will it continue to innovate?
Will it maintain alliances? Will it address internal challenges? Will it adapt to a changing world? Power isn't permanent. It must be constantly rebuilt. A different kind of superpower. The future superpower may look different from the past, less about domination, more about influence, collaboration, technology, adaptability. If the US evolves with the times, it can remain at the top.
How America Became a Superpower, Part 10. The final chapter, the legacy of American power. What makes a superpower? Is it military strength, economic dominance, technological innovation, or something deeper, something that lasts long after armies fade and economies shift? Because the story of the United States isn't just about power, it's about legacy. A nation built on an idea. From the very beginning, America was different. It wasn't founded on ancient tradition or royal bloodlines. It was built on an idea that people could govern themselves, that freedom could be protected, that opportunity could exist for anyone. That idea, first written into the United States Constitution, became one of the most powerful forces in history because ideas travel, they inspire, they evolve. More than military power. Yes, the US built the world's most powerful military. It fought in World War I, World War II, the Cold War. But its influence extended beyond war. It helped rebuild nations, stabilize regions, and shape global institutions. Power wasn't just force, it was leadership. The cultural empire. Few nations in history have influenced global culture like the United States, through movies, music, technology, lifestyle. American culture spread across continents. Hollywood stories reached billions. Platforms from YouTube to Facebook connected the world. This wasn't enforced power, it was chosen, and that made it even stronger. Innovation that reshaped humanity. From electricity to the internet, America helped define the modern age. Key breakthroughs included the rise of Silicon Valley, space exploration like the Apollo 11 moon landing, the digital revolution. Innovation didn't just grow the US, it transformed the entire world. The imperfect superpower. But no nation is perfect, and America's story includes contradictions: freedom versus inequality, power versus responsibility, influence versus intervention. It has faced criticism, made mistakes, struggled internally, yet it continued to adapt. That adaptability became its defining strength. Why America endured? Many powerful nations have risen and fallen, so why did the United States endure? Several key reasons. 1. Flexibility. It evolves with time. 2. Diversity. It draws strength from different cultures and ideas. 3. Innovation. It constantly reinvents itself. 4. Institutions. Its systems, while imperfect, are resilient. These factors allowed it to survive challenges that might have destroyed other nations. The global impact. Whether admired or criticized, American influence is everywhere. Global trade systems, international politics, technology ecosystems, cultural trends. The modern world, in many ways, reflects American impact. The future is still being written. The rise of China and other powers shows that the world is changing. The era of a single dominant superpower may be ending. But that doesn't mean American influence disappears. It evolves, just as it always has. A different kind of legacy. Perhaps the greatest legacy of the United States isn't dominance, it's possibility. The idea that systems can change, societies can evolve, power can be redefined. That legacy extends far beyond borders. The final reflection. From a fragile group of colonies, to a divided nation, to an industrial giant, to a global superpower. The journey of the United States is one of the most extraordinary transformations in human history. It wasn't inevitable. It wasn't smooth. It wasn't perfect. But it was powerful.